Hello and welcome to the Bearded Nerd Podcast. I'm your host, Brian, where I help new players and game masters learn, play, and grow their love for tabletop RPGs. When most people think about D&D, they think combat, roleplay, epic story moments. But exploration is often the forgotten pillar. Many dungeon masters struggle with it because they think exploration means tracking rations, or counting miles, or just rolling random encounters. But exploration isn't about distance, it's about discovery. So today we're talking about how to make exploration feel meaningful so that your players become excited about what lies beyond the next hill instead of asking, when are we going to our next destination and can we just get there? So if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast and be sure to leave a review. Those reviews help us out. With that being said, let's dive into this episode of the Bearded Nerd Podcast. Let's redefine exploration. Exploration is not walking, it's not traveling, and it's not just a waste of time. Exploration is discovering something new. That discovery could be a location, a secret, a danger, a mystery even, a piece of history, or a new opportunity. Players will not remember miles traveled. They will remember discoveries. So, when you are contemplating what the player should be exploring, think about how the players are going to find a new location. How would they get to that new location? That is the start of it. Or how would they discover a secret? What will lead them to a new mystery or to solve a new mystery? This change or this new way of thinking is what allows exploration to not feel boring. The problem is that oftentimes exploration is very boring. The players leave one town, they travel, they arrive at another town, and there's no choices in between. There's no discoveries. There's no consequences. There's just, no ability to discover things. So it just becomes transportation. And transportation isn't a pillar of the game. It's exploration. So when we make exploration feel alive, that they can find something, that you could describe something and say, oh, even if it's a flower, you discover a new, maybe new to you, type of flower and focus on that. And just right then and there, you created something that was going to be boring, that was going to be uninteresting. And you made it interesting. You gave your players an insight that they didn't have previously. You gave them a new discovery, which even throughout a very simple routine, you're traveling from one town to one town type of thing, they're able to have a blip of something that caught their attention. And I noticed when I give my players those little blips, so to speak, it makes my players' attention focus more on the game because they feel more immersed and involved in the world. Now, speaking about travel, there are 3 rules to discovery that I believe every dungeon master, every game master should implement, or at least include one of these things. Rule number one, include something interesting. Include maybe like a strange ruin or a giant skeleton, a mysterious monument, as an example, along the way. It's just something that sparks curiosity, makes them raise an eyebrow. With the example of the flower that I gave earlier, in that analogy or example, rather, it would be something that would catch their eye. Maybe a flower growing in a field of grass, one singular wildflower that has a particular hue of color. Just something that would catch my player's attention. Rule number 2, something useful. It has to be not just random for the sake of randomness, right? It has to provide a sort of information or a resource. Maybe it's an ally, maybe it's an NPC, maybe it's a shortcut. It has to reward the attention, right? So with rule number 1, it has to spark curiosity. And part of rule number 2, something, whatever that may be, it has to reward attention. So that same flower, maybe when they do nature checks and they do a history check or whatever it may be, or however they want to discover, right, the object in question, maybe it's a healing flower. Maybe it produces some sort of healing effect. Maybe it is a good luck charm that has kind of grown naturally there. Or maybe it's a landmark for something. Maybe there was a grave at this location and someone planted that flower. And then I can go down like a story arc of some sort. That would be epic. That would be pretty cool. But it could also, and this is where we go into rule number 3, it could be dangerous. It could be a threat, right? It could be a warning. It could be evidence of trouble ahead. Maybe that that single flower is a warning to those who, enter into this area to enter in peace, right? Something like that. It could be something really, again, dangerous, something that builds tension. Because again, not every journey needs all 3, but exploration can at least create and contain one of these rules that allows it to be interesting. We mentioned landmarks earlier. Another aspect that you should consider is that throughout exploration, you can create landmarks that will then create a memory. We see it in our natural world. We see landmarks in the wild. We know that creates a memory in our brain of, oh, hey, this is where we need to go or stay or whatever. It's the same thing in the game world. Let's take a forest, for example. Let's compare just a regular forest versus a forest where every tree bends towards a ruined tower. Which one, in your opinion, will players remember 7 months later? Well, probably the latter. It's because landmarks create an identity, and that identity creates a memory. And we can even dive deeper into the memory. The memory is a way in which the world tells its own story, right? One of the easiest ways to improve exploration is environmental storytelling. Those trees that bend towards the ruined tower tell a story of why or what happened, why it happened, how it happened. And the result was the bent trees towards the ruined tower, right? Instead of it saying, oh, there was a battle here, it shows them what occurred. Something occurred to cause this effect. And again, speaking about a battle, instead of just telling your players, oh, yeah, there was a battle here, and you move on, you can show them the broken swords, weapons, the burned wagon, the weathered graves, whatever it may be. And it lets the players discover the story, because people often remember the mysteries that they solve, not necessarily how they were spoon-fed the story. With all that being said, though, exploration needs choices. It has to become interactive. You must ask questions like, do you take the mountain path versus the forest trail, for example? Or do you investigate the lights that are blinking? Or do you continue traveling? Would you rest here or would you push forward? Your players have to be engaged. But in order to be engaged, they have to make a choice. So engagement creates investment. But investment won't happen unless the person or the players make the choice. So for your next travel sequence, here's an example that you could prepare. Prep one landmark, something memorable, right? It could be a tree that has a burnt mark and is not growing any form of foliage, leaves, whatever, throughout the entire year. It's like dead, but alive, right? You could do something like that. One discovery, something interesting about the landmark, or something just interesting in general, but maybe make it about the landmark. One choice. Give your players the choice, and it has to be meaningful. There has to be a reward or a consequence to that choice, and keep it at that. You now have the groundwork for exploration. Your players may choose not to dive deep into it, and that's okay. But at least you have the framework to get started. On the flip of it, as the kids say nowadays, I want you to avoid a couple of things. First and foremost, I want you to avoid just random encounters that have no purpose. That is a waste of your time and your players' time. I want you to also avoid endless travel descriptions. You don't have to narrate the entire thing. Give the players what they need to know and move on. If they're traveling in between towns and there's no need to have a random encounter or to describe anything, just say that the travel went well and move on. Lastly, avoid any type of discovery without relevance or without anything that the players would actually be interested in. If it doesn't pertain to them, avoid it. Your players aren't going to care. They care more about what they found versus what is just there. If you want exploration to feel meaningful, remember, exploration is not about movement, it's about discovery. So give your players something interesting to find, some meaningful choices, memorable landmarks, and stories that are hidden in the world. And suddenly travel becomes adventure. If this episode helped you rethink exploration, share this with a friend. And if you want more beginner to intermediate tools for running immersive campaigns, check the show notes for resources and check the show notes for upcoming workshops. Until next time, y'all, remember to build wonder, reward that curiosity, and as always, folks, keep gaming.